Welcome to the Grouse and Gazer channel. My name is Klaus, and yes, I am the Grouse and Gazer. I'll be your host for this video. This episode is going to review Paul Blake Smith's book, President Eisenhower's Close Encounters. Thanks to an upgrade of the video production software, which now includes artificial intelligence, we'll be able to animate all our guests, like our feature guest, President Dwight D. Eisenhower. President Eisenhower will draw his information from Smith's book, while yours truly will be asking questions on your behalf and supplementing with relevant information from other sources. So let's get started. Welcome to the video, Mr. President. Would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, my name is Dwight David Eisenhower. I was born in Denison, Texas, and I was raised in Abilene, Kansas. I graduated from West Point in 1915. During World War I trained tank crew personnel. Between wars, I worked my way up the military ladder to the rank of Brigadier General. During World War II, I oversaw the Allied invasion of North Africa, Sicily, France, and Germany. After the war in Europe, I served as the military governor of the American-occupied zone of Germany. From 1945 to 1948, I was the Army Chief of Staff. From 1951 to 1952, I was the first Supreme Commander of NATO. On January 20th, 1953, I succeeded Harry as the 34th President of the United States, and John succeeded me on January 20th, 1961. Is that enough information about me?
Yes, thank you. Regarding the video, Mr. President, did you have any extraterrestrial situations prior to becoming president?
Let's see now. British Prime Minister Churchill told me about a strange, metallic, unidentified flying object that buzzed a Royal Air Force reconnaissance plane on August 5th, 1944. The plane was flying over the British coastline at the time. The flying object was flying at speeds greater than any man-made airplane, accelerating and darting in the sky, unlike anything seen before. The craft also hovered over the reconnaissance plane for a while before it took off into the wild blue yonder. Churchill immediately classified the event, as it would create panic amongst the general population. A review of the topic would be done after 50 years have lapsed. I recall another interesting story. Way back in early 1952, I was on the USS Franklin D. Roosevelt. We were off the British coast and a storm set in that evening. The waves and rain lulled me to sleep, but the thunder and lightning woke me up at around 1:30 in the morning. I went up to the bridge looking for a cup of coffee and to chat with the crew. A bluish-white UFO came down out of the sky and hovered about 100 feet over the water, right off the starboard bow. Flashes of lightning helped to more clearly illuminate the strange craft. Finally, the UFO zipped away. I told the servicemen that I would check on this and to forget about this for now.
Fascinating. What was your involvement with extraterrestrials during the Truman administration?
After the Roswell crash, I sent Lieutenant General Twining out to the White Sands Proving Grounds. He was to make an appraisal and presentation of the unidentified object being kept there. Also, he was to deal with the military, political, and psychological situations. When Twining's mission in New Mexico was completed, he was to drop in at the Sandia Atomic Energy Commission facility and to visit the Los Alamos people, to make appraisals there too. I told Twining to take as many experts, technicians, scientists, and assistants necessary to make his mission a success.
Let's check in with Lieutenant General Nathan Twining to hear what he has to say.
I executed General Eisenhower's directive of July 9, 1947 to produce an air accident report 6 days later, dated July 15, 1947. This report includes data from the engineering staff of T-2, an aircraft laboratory, Engineering Division T. Additional data was provided by the scientific personnel of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, CIT, and the Army Air Force Scientific Advisory Group, headed by Dr. Theodore von Karman. Further analysis was contributed by personnel from research and development. 2 discs were recovered, not of U.S. manufacture, nor Germany, according to our German scientists, from Fort Bliss. They are not Russian-made either. 1 disc was recovered from Victorio Peak, and the other from Socorro, New Mexico. Doctors Oppenheimer and von Karman believe that both disks may have had atomic engines. The flight decks were round and domed at the top. There were no canopies, windows, weld marks, rivets, nor soldered joints. We had 6 occupants to examine. 4 were fatal, 1 had minor injuries, and the other had absolutely no injuries at all.
Since we've established that President Eisenhower is very familiar with the UFO phenomenon, in this next segment I wanted to talk about the military's Special Operations Manual, SOM 101. This manual has the military working swiftly, effectively, and consistently with UFO recovery. Chapter 1 discusses the relationship between the Majestic 12 and the extraterrestrial biological entities. Chapter 2 discusses definitions of the EBEs and their technology. Chapter 3 defines the recovery process, having press blackouts, how to deny, discredit witnesses, and deceive the public, secure the area, removal and transport of the spacecraft and aliens. Chapter 4, handling and receiving the material. Chapter 5, how to deal with the actual EBEs, both living and deceased. Chapter 6 provides a guide to UFO identification, but this topic is so massive, it would have to have its own video.
Excuse me, Klaus. Although SOM 101 was released in April 1954, during President Eisenhower's administration, he didn't write the manual. We did. The Majestic 12 group. President Eisenhower didn't have anything to do with it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bush. Now let's move the investigation closer to the Extraterrestrial Agreement. President Eisenhower, what happened to you on your Gulf trip of February 1954? You went missing. The people thought you were dead.
Regarding my disappearance, on the Gulf trip, the official story is that I had emergency dental surgery done because I chipped a tooth on buckshot in my roast duck at a dinner in the clubhouse.
Yes, that is the official story, all right, but I came across this video that says otherwise. Let me play a clip for you.
Washington Post staff writer Peter Carlson denies the story of the chipped tooth and calls it a cover-up. The Eisenhower Presidential Library has detailed reports of all of Eisenhower's medical and dental records. There is no reference to a broken or chipped tooth or a dentist visit related to the Palm Springs visit. The library also has copies of acknowledgments that were sent to everyone Eisenhower had contact with while in Palm Springs. There were records of people who he met on the airplane, people who sent flowers, the minister who gave the sermon at that Sunday service he attended, and others who played minor roles. But there is no proof of a note sent to a dentist. Years later, the dentist's widow said she had no recollection of ever being told by her husband that he had done dental work on the president.
Well, the incident happened over 70 years ago. Paperwork gets lost all the time.
Well, Mr. President, there are so many people that say they saw you at Edwards Air Force Base and that you had a meeting with aliens.
Mid-1954, I spoke to a reporter from Valor magazine. When I visited the Edwards Air Force Base vicinity, I spoke to an Air Force officer, I'll call Lieutenant Y, had been at Edwards that winter, and saw a round spaceship coming out of the sky and land on a runway not too far away. He said it was about 100 feet in diameter, and that the airbase was quickly put on high alert and suddenly sealed off. I discreetly questioned others at Edwards until I was satisfied that the event actually happened, and confirmed that the spacecraft was placed under guard inside Hangar 27. My main source saw the spacecraft resting inside that hangar. President Eisenhower was notified of the landed alien presence at Edwards and arrived straight away that very night. The president got a good look at everything otherworldly.
I have the testimony of that guard that Mr. Leslie referenced. The guard does not want to be named due to repercussions. He was stationed at Edwards Air Force Base, and one night, while he was on duty, he was ordered to guard a flying disc just inside a large airplane hangar. He knew President Eisenhower had visited the base for his own look-see at the off-world craft, but the guard didn't actually see the event.
I received a letter from my friend in California in April 1954 stating 5 otherworldly crafts came down and voluntarily landed at Edwards Air Force Base. There were discs of different types, and their entities invited technicians and scientists to inspect the advanced alien aerial technology. My friend collected this information from 3 different sources at Edwards Air Base.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. The letter that Harold was referring to was most likely from Gerald Light, because Gerald sent Meade Lane a letter containing the identical information. Mr. Light, would you please read the highlights of your letter?
Certainly, Klaus. I went down to Muroc, which is now called Edwards Air Force Base, with a few people. One was from Hearst Papers, one from Brookings Institute, and the Bishop of Los Angeles. We were interrogated relentlessly for hours, only to receive the shock of our lives. Quote, during my 2-day visit, I saw 5 separate and distinct types of aircraft being studied by our Air Force officials, with the assistance and permission of the Etherians. End quote.
I'd like to conduct the next segment as a roundtable. There are many guests that will throw in their 2 cents, as it were, to help us understand the events that led to the Extraterrestrial Agreement. General Zed, what happened on February 19, 1954?
I saw unidentified aircraft in our airspace, while on our gunnery range, so I ordered my sergeant to have his men fire on the bogies. The bogies did not return fire. 5 ships landed on the runway. 3 saucer-shaped crafts, ovoid, circular in shape, about 30 to 40 feet long, and 2 cigar-shaped crafts, approximately 2,000 feet long, and 95 feet thick. Radar reported them flying at 7,000 miles per hour.
A ramp emerged out of the side of the craft, and entities stepped out. They looked like humans, but not exactly.
We stepped out of our craft slowly, with no sidearms, and hands held out empty.
The visitor spoke in clear and understandable English.
We asked your president and his entourage to freely examine, inside and out, the parked spaceships on the runway.
I declined their invitation, but I allowed the entourage to check out the crafts. Their saucers were so light that 2 of my men were able to carry it. They also entered them for a closer inspection.
We are willing to cooperate and give mankind technology to cure disease, and cheap non-polluting energy technology. We want to start an educational program for the people of Earth if mankind would make concessions in regards to warfare and other things.
The concessions are to dismantle our nuclear weapons. The government, our world, is not ready for that, and cheap energy technology would severely disrupt the economy. An educational program taught by extraterrestrials would cause panic. An agreement was made to exchange their technology for a permanent base on Earth.
The extraterrestrial humanoids gave us a second demonstration. The aliens made themselves disappear. They became completely unseen, and then came back into view again, right on the runway. They showed their ability to make themselves and their spacecrafts dematerialize and rematerialize right before our very eyes.
I was very uncomfortable after I saw aliens disappearing and reappearing. After the second demonstration, the aliens boarded their ships and departed.
As Airbase Commander, I clamped the lid down on Edwards Air Force Base by ordering a 3-day lockdown, including restricting air traffic. Classified reports were typed and locked away. Photographs and film footage were confiscated, sealed, and classified as above top secret. Military police kept the gifted E.T. ship secure and isolated. Everyone on the base were lectured not to spread rumors, and the incident was on a need-to-know basis.
The demonstrations created one fantastic aerial circus, and that is why I was there. I was the president's technical advisor.
There are other covert high-level human-alien contracts after February 19, 1954, with at least 12 different races of ET beings over the ensuing decades.
We are eager to learn more about life on Earth. We want to quietly study conditions of the planet, animal, and human lives. We can contact isolated human beings in remote locations in quiet, careful, discreet ways to undertake our scientific research until Earth people get used to us.
That is all right, so long as human beings don't create panic and confusion. So the Great Treaty was created. It was ratified and signed at Kirtland Air Force Base on July 18, 1954. The treaty allowed aliens to 1. Tactically study our life form, 2. Run off with a few samples for scientific research, and 3. Submit names of those who have been abducted to the Majestic 12 Committee. The American government will 1. Keep the alien presence quiet in exchange for advanced ET hardware, and 2. Provide accommodations and amenities for them to do their research. The treaty is a necessity, but I do not condone cold-blooded kidnappings, animal mutilations, nor twisted scientific experiments. I never agreed to such gruesomeness. How can we stop them? They are so advanced.
We have negotiated a kind of surrender with them as long as we couldn't fight them. They dictated the terms because they knew what we fear most was disclosure.
The aliens had not only come to our planet, but they were working with scientists in various fields to advance various technologies. Their crafts distort the gravitational field and convert gravity into usable energy.
On February 11, 1955, sometime at 8:45 to 9 a.m., all radar technicians were ordered to turn off their equipment so Eisenhower could land at Holloman Air Force Base. He was greeted by 300 military personnel. The Columbine 3 was followed by 3 bogies. The silvery discs, all without tails, propellers, wings, exhaust, or visible motors, hovered over Air Force One at 300 feet. One disc set down 200 feet from the president's plane, while the second disc descended, but swept the sky, across the grounds, keeping a silent watch in midair. The third disc disappeared. The landed alien spacecraft opened a hatchway and a metal ramp appeared. The door of the Columbine 3 opened and Eisenhower descended down the stairs, walked across the runway to the alien ship. He walked up their ramp with his hand extended. A humanoid creature leaned out to shake it, and then both stepped inside. After a 45-minute meeting, Eisenhower returned to Air Force One.
Once I returned to the Columbine 3, we had to wait for some cargo to arrive. A pilot was allowed to fly into Holloman to drop off some cargo for the visitors and to attend my address to the personnel. Once the visitors and myself had left, the cargo pilot was permitted to return to his base.
I was working at Holloman on the day of February 11th, 1955, and witnessed the president's plane and a spaceship land on the runway. I even climbed a utility pole to get a better look.
The document I saw was an official brief to President Eisenhower. To the best of my memory, this brief was pervaded with a sense of hope, and it informed President Eisenhower of the continued presence of extraterrestrial beings here in the United States of America. The brief seemed to indicate that a meeting between the President and some of these visitors could be arranged as appropriate if desired. The tone of the brief indicated to me that there was no need for concern, since these visitors were in no way causing any harm or had any intention whatsoever of causing any disruption then or in the future. While I can't verify the times or places or that any meeting or meetings occurred directly between Eisenhower and these visitors, because of his optimism in his farewell address in 1961, I personally believe that Eisenhower did indeed meet with these extraterrestrial off-world astronauts.
Wow, that was packed with a lot of information. Let's close the video with a brief recap of what we've just seen. First of all, this is the first release of artificial intelligence within the video rendering software. I definitely found the animated pictures entertaining, and I even broke out laughing, but the important information was in the audio. The video was to complement the audio. Secondly, the eyewitness testimony was handed down through family generations. Because the events occurred more than 70 years ago, the actual witnesses are dead and buried. That is the secret behind the military security. Keep the information quiet long enough till the witnesses die off. There was a tremendous amount of testimony from Smith's book that was not included in the video. I'm doing a book review with the hopes that the audience will find the book interesting enough to purchase it. Just search the title or the author online. I have a comment that concerns the Special Operations Manual that Eisenhower didn't write. Of course he didn't write it. The Majestic 12 Committee did. But I'm sure that Eisenhower was used as a consultant. Wouldn't a West Point graduate, 5-star general, Army Chief of Staff, and a Supreme Commander of NATO have something to contribute to a military manual? With regards to security of top-secret information, of course military personnel would have to lie to keep the secrets. If you are in the military, you have to support the military line, otherwise suffer their repercussions, such as dishonorable discharge, pension termination, threats, severe fines, and possibly jail time. How did everyone keep the extraterrestrial visitation secret? There was the visit on February 19th, 1954 at Edwards Air Force Base, where the president's entourage were present. 6 security agents, technical advisor, financial advisors, clerical advisors, scientists, and the Air Force One crew. There were hundreds of military personnel, including the base commander, air traffic controllers, and military police. Everyone needed to keep it secret. On July 18, 1954, the Great Treaty was ratified at Kirtland Air Force Base. More military personnel would have to be sworn to secrecy. On February 11, 1955, unspecified cargo was given to aliens at Holloman Air Force Base. Even more military personnel, plus the cargo pilot and crew, needed to be sworn to secrecy. Special Operations Manual 1-01 requires that any alien contact must be done at a military base. With regards to treaties, Donald Phillips stated that there were treaties signed with 12 different alien species. But of course, every species has their own agenda. Reflecting on other videos on the Grouse and Gazer YouTube site, William Tompkins worked with Nordics to discover that they wanted us to advance further into space. And Tompkins dealt with reptilians only to discover the opposite. They wanted to keep humanity on Earth, and they thrive on putting us through chaos and warfare. Charles Hall discovered that tall whites come to Earth for vacation. They see humanity as animals in the proverbial zoo. Just don't touch their children, they'll kill you. Brett Oldham discovered that tall grays collect our sperm and eggs to create hybrids and find strong human emotion entertaining. Philip Corso discovered that short grays are just robots and do what they're told, so it makes sense that every species negotiate their own contract. Please leave your comments in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell for notifications of new videos.